We are just waiting for some other folks to join. I think we should have around 30, so we'll get started a couple minutes into it. Until other folks join, do you guys mind sharing where you're visiting us from? Where you're joining us from?
Yep, so this is Paul Toth. I'm actually in Florida right now, but I'm with the Downtown Toledo Development Corporation.
Okay.
Organization called Connect Toledo. I have, I think, one or two other colleagues joining as well.
Excellent. Where are you in Florida?
I'm in Venice.
Oh, nice. I just got back from West Palm Beach this weekend. It's not bad in Florida.
I'm Paul Lauer. I'm with the Downtown Spokane Partnership in Spokane, Washington. I'm a second generation Florida native and just moved from Central Florida to here this summer.
Oh, nice.
So,
welcome.
Kind of missing the warm weather. It's getting cold here now.
Yep, definitely. Anyone else? Where are the rest of you all from?
I put mine in the chat, but I am from Vancouver, BC, Canada, and with the downtown band BIA.
Excellent. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Tiana. I'm with Times Square Alliance in New York City.
Hi, I'm Kelly. I'm with the Atlantic Avenue in Brooklyn, New York.
Welcome. Another New York. All right. It looks like we have quite a crew, so I think we can go ahead and get started. We're recording anyway, and we'll share this out for folks after the session is over. But thank you all for joining us today. We originally, I'll share my screen so that we can all be on the same page here. So we originally did this panel at the IDA conference in Chicago, and it was a packed crowd, and we had a lot of great questions. So we figured having a follow-up would be great, A, so that folks could ask their outstanding pending questions, and B, so that we could share the session with a wider audience for anyone who wasn't able to join us in Chicago. So, so we'll get started. The session is on metrics and reporting, right? So just to start, to introduce myself, I'm Catherine McKissick. My organization is District360, and we are Salesforce consultants who work with over 50 downtown districts all across the country. And so as part of our role as technology consultants is we are constantly being asked by all of our customers and your peers all across North America, how are other organizations doing reporting, or how are you guys helping them streamline their reporting? And so we're constantly sort of sharing best practices across this industry. And given that IDA and other organizations don't really have a core set of metrics, a lot of times districts are looking at similar things, but it's not always apples to apples comparisons. So I asked two of our customers, three of them actually, Union Square in San Francisco, Times Square in New York, and downtown Dallas, if they would be willing to share a couple of things with you all. So number one was, what metrics are they reporting on? And how are they, where are their data sources? Where are they getting that information so that they can use that for reporting? And then number two, how are they actually doing the reporting? So who are their audiences? How are they disseminating the materials? All of that. So I want to give it over to them. I think one important underlying assumption here that everyone should know is just that, no one arrived at where they are today with reporting overnight. It's been a work in progress over years, months, if not years, and different looks at what systems are they using, how could they use them better, what other systems might give better results, et cetera. So they'll speak a little bit to their reporting journey, and then take your questions at the end. So this might be a little choppy because I keep admitting people, but I'll go ahead and go back to sharing my screen. All right, so Scott, I think it's over to you.
Oh, you're not going to give me a fancy introduction?
Sorry.
No, that's fine. Hi, I'm Scott Goldstein. I'm the Chief of External Affairs and Government Relations for Downtown Dallas Inc. We, in Texas, call our, what I think most other states call bids, we call them PIDs. And so as you can see, there's a little background on the screen on our organization, about 267 blocks in the core of downtown. We've got about 100 employees, and we do what was at IDA, one of the big takeaways we were reminded of is that I guess it's fairly unusual that we do all our field operations in-house. So all of our folks are direct DDI employees. And that's the majority of our workforce, about 25-ish in our, what we call our corporate office. And then we're all in the same building, but our clean team, security, homeless outreach, and our ambassadors are based a few floors below us at street level here in the core of downtown. That's another little bit of a different thing for us. We don't call all our folks ambassadors. Our ambassadors are just kind of our customer service agents out in the field, and then we have different divisions that are focused on security, cleanup, and homeless outreach separately, just to give you a sense of how we operate. And our journey, I've been at DDI about 3 years, but I've been working in Dallas, always in downtown. I worked at City Hall for the last mayor. I started as a reporter, so I'm very familiar with downtown. And then coming to DDI, it probably took about a year and a half, about half my time here to kind of figure out what we wanted to do with our monthly reports that we send to our board and ultimately to City Hall. Starting out when I got here, we were just doing what I think a couple of CEOs ago had wanted us to do, and we hadn't really assessed if it was packaged and reporting in the right way to be really meaningful and beneficial to what I often remind my colleagues and my employees, that it's like the most important audience that you could possibly have, which is the people that your boss works for and that we all work for, the people that obviously pay into the PID. We also have a membership side, so it's a lot of folks and organizations that pay both into the PID and also membership to be a part of DDI. And then, as I mentioned, Dallas City Hall requires us to do reporting every quarter. So we do monthly reporting for the board, and then we package it up into a quarterly report. We had already been contracted with District360 when I got here, but we've really greatly expanded what we're doing with this. You can go to that next slide. So we've vastly expanded what we're using District360 for. It kind of started logically as a place where we were tracking properties and assessments downtown. And what you see here is we are under the direction of our CEO. We decided it'd be important to put together kind of a data super users group in our corporate office at the beginning of this year. And one of the first things we did was just kind of take stock across the organization of how many platforms we're using. And this isn't even all of them, but this is most of them, or most of the ones that we use on a day-to-day basis and that are most important for us to be reporting out on. And it worked really well because in conversation with the District360 team, with Kate and her colleagues, they a couple months later asked us to do this exercise, and we had already done it internally. So it felt good to have already kind of gone down that road. But this has really helped us figure out like where we want to be and where we need to get to in terms of like integrating the data, so we're not logging into 15 different platforms. But also we learned a lot from each other, because like every organization, even smaller nonprofits, there was some level of siloing, and so we didn't have full awareness of all that we had. So I would definitely like encourage you, if you're on that journey of kind of figuring out how best to report and prove your value, to the logical first step is to just sit down with representatives from every division of your organization and do what we did, kind of put them in buckets and figure out at a high level what each of your platforms do. And then you might even find that you don't figure that it's duplicative, that you could save money by maybe consolidating some of what you're doing, or you don't need this platform and that platform. So this kind of helped us both to assess what we had, but then to also map out like where we want to go in the coming years in terms of integrating with District360. The biggest thing we did related to District360 this year was we worked with them to develop an app internally for our field ops to log every response. We were using TrackTick previously, which some of you may be on, and it was fine, but we just made a decision after much deliberation and study that having 360 build us a custom app for our team where the data is fed directly into 360 would make the most sense for us. It would be the most beneficial, and that's just really the first time in our organization's history. We've been around 65 years. We were running the PID for about half of that time since it was created in the early 90s. It's the first time that anybody across the organization who has Salesforce access can actually get direct insight into what we're doing out in the field. So it's been huge. And rather than just relying on our field ops folks to feed us their data, we can actually get real-time insights into trends and challenges that we're facing. This is just kind of a high-level summary of some of the key metrics. We're probably still reporting too much or gathering too much, although I don't know that that's necessarily possible. Like, we have a lot in the Salesforce District360 platform that we don't necessarily report every single month, but I still feel like it's good to have that data there. But these are some of the key things that we do report out on. A lot of the economic development stuff is third-party sources that we pay for, or like through our Convention and Visitors Bureau data. But then outside of economic development, it's mostly data that we're tracking ourselves. As you can see, like attendance for parks, we've had 4 major new parks open in the last few years, over 20 acres of new parks that we're responsible to program in downtown. And up until this year, we were still having our field ops folks count with their eyeballs on the hour how many people they saw in the parks. And again, that was something that we just did it that way for a lot of years. And so we just continued to do that. Well, we had signed on to Placer sometime last year, and it was like, well, can't we use Placer, and wouldn't it be a lot more accurate? So it's been a great, a much better use, I think, of resources to not require our field ops folks to be counting people in parks, and to be relying on Placer data. That's just one example. And then the clean and safe, the one that got I think the most attention both at IDA last week and had gotten some broader attention because it was written about in our local paper here, was piles of poop picked up, because our clean team picks up a whole lot of poop. And it just so happens that our daily newspaper wrote about it, and in as positive a way for us as it could be. It was that we were having to bear too much of the burden of people that aren't picking up after their pets. But so that's a very good example, I think, of something that really illustrates in one stat the kind of dirty work that our clean team does every single day. But beyond that, as you can see, graffiti is a big deal. So the power washing is one of our big asks that we get. Shopping carts removed, and then just proactive contacts with businesses throughout the central business district. You can go to the next one, Kate. These are just kind of examples to give you a sense of what you see when we log into our platform. We're still kind of developing custom dashboards for different team members based on kind of what is of most interest to them, what's most relevant. But it's just, like I said, it's totally changes the game. And the big thing we're working on now with the 360 team is you have to have a license to look at this stuff. And each Salesforce license costs money. So, we still have some limit on which employees get insights into this, but we're working to develop some sort of public facing dashboard that would be available to our board members so that so they can get real-time insights into our work, not just through the static monthly and quarterly reports, but through a live dashboard. That's been a goal that I think we're getting closer to, hopefully going live in the next couple of months. Go to the next one. Just more examples of, and then here's kind of the final product that we put out now. It still involves like layout and design through Canva. That's our preferred way of laying out. But compared to what we used to do, which we used to do a package of about 12 Word documents, which was with complete text. And I think probably most people that received that looked at it and didn't really read it much at all, because it just wasn't a good way to digest information. It gave no context to prior months. It would maybe give a passing reference to the most recent month, but it gave no broader perspective on like the last 90 days and year over year. And now the DDI has almost 2 years worth of data in Salesforce, and more in some cases, depending on the category. We're able to show month-by-month trends. We're able to make charts and graphs and all kinds of things that are visually appealing. And what we've asked for is kind of like narrative information within the Salesforce platform that's kind of speaks to the data. So instead of just updates about what meetings you had and just, like I said, just a bunch of text, we've got photos, we've got charts, we've got interpretations of the data, and we've gotten some really good feedback from the board. And I mean, I think in some cases you do reports like this and you don't hear a lot. But again, what I would just remind my colleagues and all of you is like, you don't hear anything until like, something comes up and all of a sudden somebody at City Hall or somebody on your board wants to start digging into everything for the last like 3 years. Something bad happened or something good happened. And so I just think it's important, even if you feel like you're putting these reports into a vacuum and never hearing anything back, like, A, I think people are reading it. I know there's board members that talk to me that are looking at this information. And B, like, you just never know when in most cases it's going to be a public document. And so you just never know when it's going to become particularly important that it's all buttoned up and that you're really telling that story. For us, it's every 7 years that we have to do a renewal of our PID management agreement. And so obviously that's, using this information to build up our case for that process, which comes in, I think, 4 more years for us, is really like the ultimate goal. And that's really what we're kind of keeping front of mind as we build out District 360 is really making that case to the ratepayers of how valuable we are, and how important our services are. And so I think these reports now that we've worked toward, we're still refining them, and still finding ways to improve them, but I think they get much closer to telling, a really good story, a clear story about the value that we provide to our stakeholders. I'm excited to kind of we had a good conversation at IDA, so I'm after Regina, I'm excited to have a conversation with y'all and answer any questions.
Yeah, thank you, Scott. That was excellent.
Thank you.
Let me move forward here one. All right, so now we have Regina from the Times Square Alliance. Take it away, Regina.
Thanks, Kate. Thanks, Scott. Everyone can hear me, right? Yep. Yeah, okay, I got that. All right, so I'm Regina Fojas, Senior Vice President and Chief of Staff at the Times Square Alliance. We cover 36 blocks. Like Scott, 2/3 of our staff are our operations team, so sanitation and public safety, and they're all hired in-house. And listed here is our scope of work. We exist to keep Times Square clean, safe, and desirable for all who come, whether they're locals or visitors from around the country or around the world. And we've been using District 360 for 3 years, but we have been on the Salesforce platform for longer. You can go to the next slide, Kate. Thank you. And I think there are 4 things I'd like to share with you all when it comes to reporting. Number 1 is the case method, copy and steal everything, aka C what your stakeholders are asking of you when it comes to metrics. Look at what other bids are doing and see where that lines up with what you're already doing and how it can improve. Get buy-in from management. Scott's the head of external affairs at his PID. I am the chief of staff. I think one of the things I learned from our panel was that we're not like the chief data officer. I think but it is important to have somebody at your organization who's in the management level to make the case and advocate for investment into data collection. And don't do everything at once. Be patient. Start small. I've been with the Alliance collectively for 5 years. And when I rejoined, the audio's funky, okay. When I rejoined right before COVID, Salesforce was sort of the neglected child. It existed to keep track of our stakeholders' contact information and property owners, but there really wasn't any connection between other platforms that we were using and other data that we were producing. You can go to the next slide. And so this shows you, all the data sources that we use. And this is all in addition to the data that we collect ourselves, our operations team. So I think it's important to know that there are going to be things that you have to pay for. For example, we have a partnership with Springboard for our pedestrian counts. We purchase Visa data to collect, reports of spending if people come to Times Square. But I'd say start small, look for stuff that's free. You may not even know what is already readily available to you, like crime stats, at least in New York, with the NYPD, the CompStat website, or 311 produces free data. See what's already there so you don't feel overwhelmed. And then I think the last thing, and I'll show this as we go over the next 2 slides, is be open to change and evolve as your data needs change. So if you go to the next slide, Kate. Thank you. This is our monthly economic indicators report. And this is something our planning, policy, and research department has produced for many years, probably since 2004. This is the way it looks like now, but it actually started as a way to share, the health of Times Square at our board meetings. And the head of our department thought, hey, we should let other people know about what's going on in Times Square. And I think this is really important when you advocate for, changes at the city or state level. And so this comes out monthly. The target audience initially was the broker community, but since then it's been shared widely across industries in Times Square. And this is posted, you can subscribe to this, and it's posted on our website. We have a section that says do business here and lists all of our research as well as any sort of one-off studies that we do. And the next slide will show you the pedestrian counts that we also have historically posted on our website and have kept track of through Springboard. So they installed cameras on the buildings in the bow tie, which is the intersection of Broadway and 7th Avenue in Times Square between 42nd and 48th Street. And on average, we get 350,000 people walking through Times Square a day, and which is really great because we've reached that level even after the pandemic and are looking forward to just seeing that number grow. And if you go to the next slide, so that's where we were, and this is where we are now. How did we get there? So there were 3 challenges that led to this dashboard, which I like to call our command center. It was the pandemic, and no one in our org really owning Salesforce. It was our operations data not being integrated into Salesforce and living on other platforms that we were paying for, and realizing that there's not a one-size-fits-all solution when it comes to collecting our data and analyzing it and then externally sharing it. So the middle here with all the pretty charts is typically is all the information that we are, are the staff at the Alliance input into Salesforce. And Tiana, who's on the call, is key to this power users group that we build out, that Scott even mentioned, of internal staff members who help advocate for use of the platform. And I think that's really important. So it shouldn't just be you, unless you're a one-person team, but it's good to have other people see the value in it so that it, that spreads throughout the team, because adoption is certainly one of our challenges that I haven't quite figured out yet. On the right-hand side are links to data sources and even like HR resources that are important for staff members to use. So an example is the monthly indicator report. There are sources of data in that report that aren't integrated with Salesforce, and they don't have to. But we also think it's important if somebody is already in Salesforce and they're thinking about, oh, but I want to refer back to the economic indicator report from last month. It's easily accessible here and links out to it. Or one of the things we often get are press requests for, we heard that there have been no leases signed in the last month in Times Square. Can you really tell me what's going on? And our team has a press sheet of all the latest specs, whether it's pedestrian counts, opening and closings of our storefronts. And again, at your fingertips, not necessarily living in the core data pool of Salesforce, but leads out to it. And if you go to the next slide, and I like to think of that dashboard as something that I open when I open my Outlook every day, right? It's there alongside my email. The first dashboard we saw was an overview of everything that we're doing across the teams. The operations dashboard specifically focuses on what our sanitation team is addressing, what our public safety team is addressing, whether it's something that they can address themselves or it has to be escalated to a city agency through the 311 phone number, and also the dispatch calls, which is on the next slide. And these two slides they show the integration of moving away from two types of software that we were paying for and integrating it into Salesforce so that we could, save some money and have all that internal data living in one place. So I spoke about how the pandemic and sort of making us evolve the way that we look at our data and analyze it. In the December of 2020, we started pulling things from the monthly indicator report, but looking at it at a weekly basis. So the last slide shows you the report that's come out of this data evolution or journey that we're on. If you go to the next slide, Kate. This is called the Economic Development and Operations Report. So the monthly indicator report, which I think is going to be linked to when Kate shares the PowerPoint. You're going to see that the types of data that's reported out there is slightly different than this one here. First of all, time period, it's on a weekly basis. It has some of our bread and butter stats like head counts, hotel occupancy, and also our core operations conditions, like the number of unhoused individuals, graffiti that's been addressed, or garbage bag collection. And one thing that came out of the pandemic is tracking the number of storefront businesses, so typically ground level, that are open or closed. At the height of the pandemic, only 13% of our storefronts were open. And I'm happy to say that at this point, we're back to like 88% open, or at least open, and some are about to come on soon. And this was information that first, again, we shared internally just to keep track of what was going on in Times Square. And then we came to the realization of why not share it out with reporters who ask about how Times Square is, and also our stakeholders who have to make their own business decisions. And so this is a report that we continue to produce. And I'm happy to talk more about it or answer any questions that you have. But again, I think at the end of the day, start small. Don't feel like you have to get everything done at once and or pay for everything. If you know there's like census data or any data at the city or state level, even if it's a control reports that you can repurpose or use to your advantage. Thanks.
Thank you, Regina. Okay, I'll try and represent Ben as best I can here, and I'll go a little probably more quickly than he would like, but that way then we can sort of see the third perspective and then we can open it up for questions. So Union Square is similar in size and scope to both of downtown Dallas and Times Square, 27 blocks, 8 to 10 million, and their ambassador and security staff is definitely larger than their administrative staff as well. They also, similar to Times Square, had already been using Salesforce for many years before they met us, but we've been working with them for the last almost 4 years at this point. Their metrics are very similar to Times Square and Dallas, and some of you probably as well. One unique thing to call out at Union Square here is video footage requests. So they're in a public-private partnership with I think most of their district is being recorded from cameras that are on private buildings throughout the district. But there's a dispatcher in-house at Union Square who responds to video requests from property owners, San Francisco Police Department, et cetera. So in addition to everything else discussed, they're also managing a lot of video footage that they're sending out, and they're tracking all of those requests as part of their metrics as well. One other unique metric that they're tracking that I didn't hear at the other two organizations is the San Francisco airport air traffic. So they're monitoring passenger counts on a monthly basis as well. Some examples of their dashboards. Their operations team is called Member Services, and they view it as service delivery to their rate-paying members. So these are some examples of different dashboards that they have in their system. Their monthly ops report, similar to the examples you've already seen, so we don't need to dwell on it. All of these are hyperlinked, by the way. We'll be sending this out. Yes, we will be sending this to everyone after this meeting. Their annual report, similar to both Dallas and Times Square, rolls up everything that they've reported, weekly, monthly, into their annual report. I think what Ben had said about this was in the past, or at a high level, they've streamlined the compilation of each of those different benchmark reports. And so this one has actually become a lot easier to do every year. They obviously have a designer who designs it, but the metrics are a lot easier to roll up since they're tracking them. His favorite report is essentially, he calls it a roll-up report. It's a way to see who are the biggest property owners within the district. And so to Scott's point, it becomes a little bit easier to prove your value when you have all the service requests at a property, and then you can easily see, for one owner, these are the 8 properties they own, and these are all the requests that we've fulfilled or services that we've delivered around their properties. So he really loves being able to report on that. Their tech stack is a little bit more lean than the other two organizations here. They also have a place called Doing Business on their website, where that's what you see scrolling on the right-hand side here. It's a lot of the metrics, or it's a dashboard that they've made available to the public who might be interested in doing business there. All right. Sorry, Ben, that was like fast forward version. But now we have time to open it up to you all for any questions that you have for our panelists. So I will, actually, you all can unmute yourselves. I don't need to monitor the chat, but I will continue to monitor the chat in case you feel more comfortable putting a question there. Who has a question? Anyone?
I'm just curious, how do you measure sidewalk that you power wash by square feet in your Salesforce systems?
That's a good question. I think when the Power Wash team is doing the work within the app, so the mobile app, the District360 mobile app, I think they manually input the square footage of the location that they just did. Yeah, I think it's manually input into the app. Anyone else have any questions? Hey, Kim.
I have a question. Regarding, I saw that some of the bids on here are using data from City 311 and also from the Times Square bid is working with like ComStat data. I'm wondering, like, how difficult was it to work with your partner agencies on allowing them to share information with you?
I think, so the 311 data is something that I think it's readily available, and Tiana, correct me if I'm wrong, that you can download. So we didn't have to ask anyone for it. That being said, CoStar is a subscription. I wouldn't say it's perfect, because sometimes when real estate companies post when they have a vacant space, they don't always say, and let's say it's about to be leased, they don't always say who it is. So then you have to reach out to the contact there and start to build that relationship. And that's why it's really important to have these reports of data, even if it's not, even if it doesn't look like ours or Ben's or Scott's, to show your value. A lot of the brokers use our pet counts and, even marketing material of the programming that we do on our plazas as a way to entice potential customers. So we try to do like a give and take sort of situation. I hope that answers your question.
Actually, can I just go back to the 311 question for a second? So do you have where are you getting the 311 information? Are your ambassadors, or is your field team answering it in, or are you getting it from people within the district?
So it's two parts. So if the condition is something that we cannot address, like a light is out in a traffic light or a lamppost, not only will they, it's a little bit of double work, they'll report the condition internally to Salesforce, but also write up or make a call to 311.
Okay.
All the 311 conditions that we pull from the Open Data website, which is a New York City based website and is open to the public. So all the 311 conditions that are in Times Square don't necessarily only come from us. It could be somebody who works in a building and notices that, the curb on a sidewalk is damaged, right? So it's good to have it's good to have the 311 submission number, like the report numbers that we ourselves submit, but then the Open Data website also lists everything, and you can limit it or narrow it down by zip code.
Thank you. That's so helpful.
Yeah, no problem.
Does anyone else have any questions? I see there's one in the chat, which I'll get to, but I want to get to others if you have one. No? Okay. Connie from San Antonio, I believe, was asking about the SMART system. So Connie, these three teams do not work with Block by Block. That's Block by Block's proprietary technology. So they're collecting all of this data from their workforce, like District360 workforce management application. The block by block smart system is being revamped for release in the spring of next year. And then post that release, we will be able to integrate the District360 platform with the smart platform, and you'll be able to pull the metrics from the smart world into District360. And so at that point, we'll be able to have dashboards that look just like the examples from today, but that will be smart information coming from the smart system into District360. Cool. Yeah, we are too. Who else has questions? No other questions? All right. Well, if there are no other questions, then I think we can wrap up early. We'll send this deck to you all. And I also wanted to highlight that there is a one-page handout that we gave during the live session where we consolidated the metrics that each of these districts is tracking under the three, stakeholder engagement, economic development, and member services, and then gave you some examples of a dashboard. So we'll send out both the PowerPoint and this one pager to everyone who joined us today. Yep, and as Regina said, all three of our panelists are amazing human beings and willing to answer any other questions you have if they might pop up later. You'll find their contact information on the final slide of the deck as well, so you can reach out to me or any of our panelists as well. All right, thank you all, especially you, Regina, and you, Scott. We really appreciate your sharing your metrics and your journey with everyone. And hopefully we'll all see each other again soon. Wishing you all a good fall.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.